OpenAI is pursuing a new way to fight AI hallucinations. This coming fresh off the block after we had a recent stint of where a New York attorney attempted to use ChatGPT to cite cases in regards to their case filing with their clients. And I think they said that he had 6 cases that ChatGPT cited and asked ChatGPT directly, are these cases real and are they genuine? To which the generative AI platform assured him it was. And then once he used them in court, he found out that they were not real and they were completely fabricated. So big deal. And so we are starting to see a response with some of these generative AI platform developers such as OpenAI, and then Google has some stuff in here. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. OpenAI is taking up the mantle against AI hallucinations, the company announced Wednesday, with a newer method for training artificial intelligence models. The research comes at a time when misinformation stemming from AI systems is more hotly debated than ever amid the generative AI boom and lead up to the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Yes, this is going to be a big deal. We know about the history of AI, but right here is where we want to pick up. AI hallucinations occur when models like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Google's Bard fabricate information entirely, behaving as if they are spouting facts. One example: in Google's own February promotional video for Bard, the chatbot makes an untrue claim about the James Webb Space Telescope. More recently, ChatGPT cited bogus cases in a New York federal court filing, and the New York attorneys involved may face sanctions. That's the one we just talked about. Even state-of-the-art models are prone to producing falsehoods. They exhibit a tendency to invent facts in moments of uncertainty, the OpenAI researchers wrote in the report. These hallucinations are particularly problematic in domains that require multi-step reasoning, since a single logical error is enough to derail a much larger solution. OpenAI's potential new strategy for fighting the fabrications: train AI models to reward themselves for each individual correct step of reasoning when they're arriving at an answer. Instead of just rewarding a correct final conclusion, the approach is called process supervision, as opposed to outcome supervision, and could lead to a better explainable AI, according to the researchers, since the strategy encourages models to follow more of a human-like chain of thought approach. Detecting and mitigating a model's logical mistakes or hallucinations is a critical step towards building aligned AGI, or artificial general intelligence, Carl Cobe, MathGen researcher at OpenAI, told CNBC, noting that while OpenAI did not invent the process supervision approach, the company is helping to push it forward. The motivation behind this research is to address hallucinations in order to make models more capable at solving challenging reasoning problems. OpenAI has released an accompanying data set of 800,000 human labels it used to train the model mentioned in the research paper. So basically, we're having issues where these ChatGPT and other generative models are completely fabricating information. They're changing the steps of how the AI processes the information it's gathering when an inquiry is made into the generative AI model, and it will take more of a step-by-step approach to testing as it goes, and we'll see if that actually works and actually effectively defeats the AI hallucination problem that we're seeing. But it is an interesting fact. I mean, I think it still kind of stems back to can you really trust the information that this thing is spewing out? Is it really going to be beneficial to just completely give your trust over to it? And will you be willing to do that in the future? I don't know if that's something that I'll ever be able to do, given the nature of how the model works. I don't think it's a bad idea when you're using these tools to actually turn around and say, well, I'm going to do more research on this. I will just search up some of the basic information to make sure that the information that I'm getting from it is actually legitimate. This is like, here's a good idea. Some of the hallucinatory stuff that people have been concerned about is models making up citations and references. There's no evidence in this paper that this would work for that. It's not that I'm saying it won't work. I'm saying that this paper does not provide that evidence. So, essentially they're experimenting with it, trying to figure out how to fix it. And so they're not even sure if the process that they're going to do right away is actually going to fix the fabrication of information. It may just be an issue, a chink in the armor of the model. Is this something we're seeing that could potentially be a limiting factor to how generative AI will be used, how effective generative AI will be brought on to certain different companies, and how it will be accepted broadly? This could be a massive chink in the armor of this generative AI model if they can't figure out a way to stop the hallucination aspect of the tool. And right now we're seeing a lot of hype around these kinds of things, and overall everyone's talking about it, everyone's talking about accepting it, everyone's talking about how they're how they are or aren't going to implement it into their business model. I believe IBM just announced a massive amount of jobs. I want to say 20,000. Don't quote me on it. You can actually just look it up. But they just announced a massive amount of their jobs that they have will be replaced by this generative AI model. And essentially, the slight sliver of truth here in this whole thing is that it is not 100% certain that the steps they're taking right now are actually going to be effective against defeating the hallucination aspect of these generative AI models. And so what that means is that they may not actually know how to stop it or how to prevent this from happening, which is going to be a huge issue with where this thing goes in the future and how much it's accepted. If they cannot figure out how to stop the hallucination aspect of it, then the whole basis for why someone would use it kind of goes out the window. Like, the whole point of it is to make it easier for you to find information. And so with the language model, the whole point is you can have it create or put together research for you and actually cite sources. And if you can't trust that the sources that it's citing aren't real or legitimate or actually completely fabricated, then you now have to turn around and go back and find your own sources, which essentially was what I believe a lot of these people are trying to avoid, especially that lawyer. That lawyer was trying to avoid having to do the research to look for the data he was looking for, which essentially was, hey, I'm just trying to cite cases for my one case. And if he can't trust it to do that, then the whole reason for using it kind of goes out the window. It could be a huge chink in the armor because at that point, how much of it is actually being hallucinated by the AI, by the language model, or by the generative AI, and how much of it is actually trustworthy. It causes a whole questionable thing. And for companies to throw all their eggs into the basket to say we're going to take this on and embrace it becomes a very dangerous thing, in the sense of they're not sure what's actually going to be spewed out is going to be trustworthy. And so you're replacing jobs with this machine or with this software, and versus having a human at the helm who actually could do critical thinking and say, hey, some of this stuff is not right. So this is a very interesting situation to come in. This could cause a lot of issues if they can't figure this out. And they even admittedly said that what the steps they're taking right now is no guarantee. Now, do I think they will eventually figure it out? I do think they will eventually figure it out. I don't think this is going to be a major problem, but I do think that if they can't figure it out, and this becomes like a thing where they're constantly working on it, and there really is no way to prevent it, then I do believe like this could seriously dampen the reach of what generative AI becomes, because generative AI is not the artificial intelligence that like people like Elon Musk and all of them are talking about takes over the world. It's not, but it is something that could definitely cause issues. We've talked about in other videos how we had multiple tech leaders come together and be a part of a warning system of how generative AI could become out of control and how it could really cause major damage culturally, including Sam Altman himself. I don't believe all of his touring and all of his conversations around AI is genuine all the time. I do believe there is a marketing factor behind that, and I do believe there is a tactic behind that to get ahead of all the negative press for the benefit of the company so they can control the narrative and they don't wind up having regulatory agencies come in and prevent them from being able to grow in the direction they want to grow. There is a very capitalistic approach and reasoning behind this that is very, very lucrative for those in Silicon Valley, or the Silicon Valley types. That doesn't just mean they live in, California. It's just the tech company mantra that a lot of people use to define these companies. But they've learned very early on, based on other unicorn tech startups, to engage in that tactic because regulatory aspects became very, very damaging to the financial stability of the companies and the growth, and they had to battle against that. And so there is a tactic being used here that is very real, don't deceive yourself, where it is very lucrative for Sam Altman to get out there and get in front of conversations about the dangers of his product that he's creating, that you would think would cause the company to slow down and actually hurt the company, those kind of conversations, because he's talking against his product. But what it actually does is it gets him in control of the narrative, and it allows them to develop a narrative around their product that they can still seem as though they're being honest, which I'm not saying they're not being honest, but they can control it in a sense where the company can continue to grow and not be damaged by the things that are being said by it. So there is a whole tactic around it. It definitely is engaged in. It's definitely being used because they want to control that narrative. It's beneficial for them to get out in front of it and just embrace it and be able to be a part of talking about it. I mean, there is no other industry where you'll see a CEO get out and spew negative information about the product they're creating because it typically would damage the ability for the company to grow. But the tech industry somehow, in this crazy world we live in, has figured out a way for them to do this, where they can control this narrative, and he can talk about the dangers of generative AI. He can talk about the dangers of AGI, and they're not worried about it because they know very, very well that their product is addictive and people are going to use it, and they can prevent their whole goal is to prevent regulatory agencies from getting in their way. I mean, what other universe can you be a part of where you watch a CEO go to one you go to one promotional meeting and talk about the benefits of his own product, and then in the same week go to a regulatory meeting and talk about the dangers of his own product? So it's a crazy world that they live in, and it's very, very real. And so the hallucination aspect of this is a very big deal for them. They have to figure this out. If they don't figure this out, then this product is not what it claims to be. Like, I don't think that they are going to be able to really take it any further. This could be a lot of hype, and the hype, I guess the question here that I'm asking is, do you think the hype is going to start to die from this? And how much more are we going to see of this? Right now, until they figure this out, there is going to be more and more hallucination incidences pop up that are very damaging to the people that are using the product. And that's the reality until they can figure this out, because there's a lot of people out there that will engage in using this that have no idea what it is or how it works. And admittedly, the lawyer that is now potentially going to face very, very bad penalties openly admitted that when he engaged in using it, he had no idea what it was and how it operated. And he even admitted that he had no idea that there was a hallucination aspect to the software. So this is a big deal. The more that comes out, that will affect the adoption of the software into different companies and how people use it. And I think it's like one of those things where it becomes popular because it's popular with a younger generation that likes to mess around with it, kind of like a social media app, but not so much popular with businesses as we've seen them adopt into it. Now, however, though, it'll be very niche specific, because there have been a lot of tech companies that are still functioning and doing well and using the product, but there have also been I've actually seen there's been actually a couple of YouTubers that have used ChatGPT to create code, and they admittedly don't understand code. They don't have a full understanding of it, so they're just some guy randomly trying to create a game using ChatGPT's knowledge to design the code for them. And one YouTuber I watched specifically tried to design an app-based game. He admittedly that it was like an experiment. He did not have any information as far as he didn't understand coding at all in the slightest. And he said that he was starting to, he would ask it to design code, he would copy and paste it into the software he was using to develop the code, and then, stuff would fail and it wouldn't work, and he kept asking it to fix it. And he said what was great about it was as he was using it, he was learning code. He learned a lot from doing it just by being around it and watching how the generative AI, ChatGPT, would create it. So he learned a lot from it. However, eventually he got to a point where no matter how he prompted it, no matter what he asked it to do, he could not fix a specific piece of the code, and it came to a grinding halt. So what that tells you is that if someone understands code and knows code and is an expert in coding and programming, then the generative AI tool becomes helpful in that area. However, it is not one of these things where now someone who is, completely unnuanced and knows nothing about their industry and, is basically completely incompetent or ignorant of how the industry works. That does not mean that they can then pick up ChatGPT like some sort of Excalibur sword that gives them ultimate power and use it to become an expert in an industry they have no idea how it operates. It's very clearly eventually going to hit a wall. You definitely can't be a lawyer with it. That's been proven. And then in that video, it proves that the coding aspect doesn't work. So what that does is it becomes a very specified niche type of tool, but it becomes nothing more than a tool. It's going to be a tool, and in the right person's hands, a very effective tool. In the wrong person's hands, it eventually becomes useless, just like that guy who was developing the code for the software. Eventually he got to a wall that he couldn't get past until someone who is experienced and nuanced in coding and programming could come in and show him what ChatGPT was getting wrong and could fix it and move forward from there. That's a very interesting breakdown of how this software is actually working and the limitations of it. And if they can't get past this hallucination aspect of it, and it's something that they can't fix, then that will definitely dampen and affect how they move forward. Because essentially what that means is that if you're writing a paper, or if you're using it to cheat on your homework and you're going to have it dole out this paper for you, then you're going to have to make sure you have an understanding of the subject that you're writing about, and you're able to proofread it. It's still going to require further proofreading, so it saves you time in one aspect, but it won't save you time in the other. And it's also going to affect, even like I've heard some, content creators that are like, well, I'm just going to use ChatGPT to spew out scripts and create videos, and I'll just read them and I'll just use the facts from there. And it's like, well, it'll save you time in the sense of writing a basic script, but you're still going to have to invest the time to ensure that the information that you're collecting from it is accurate. So it doesn't mean like basically what it means is that not any numbskull can just say, I'm going to create a random YouTube channel about a random subject, and as long as I just keep spewing out information from ChatGPT, everything's going to be great. Eventually you're going to have a situation where you get the wrong facts, and if you're not knowledgeable enough, if you're not educated enough in that subject, you'll wind up putting information out that will damage your reputation and damage your channel, and people will catch you on it. So anyways, I thought this was really interesting. I thought this is an interesting aspect we have to look at, and I'm just curious to see, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is going to dampen the reach of this generative AI model? Are we starting to see the chinks in the armor, the cracks in the chain, where what we're going to start seeing now is a downward trend of if this software is going to be anything at all, anything more than just a hype? Let me know in the comment section below. It might just be a little thing, and they might just keep pushing forward, but who knows? If they can't figure it out, it could be something that really, is a damaging factor to the growth of this organization. And so please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I really appreciate all the support. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will catch you in the next one.